Today's scripture reading is from Exodus chapter 16, verses 2 to 7 and 11 to 15. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole of this assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for the day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instruction or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us?" The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God." In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat."
You know the story of Moses and the Israelites' escape from Egypt, right? For years, they had been slaves under the Pharaoh's strict and odious rules, and night after night they prayed for liberation. Finally, Moses, the babe born into poverty, cast into the water in a woven basket, discovered in the reeds raised by the Egyptian royal family, reclaimed his own Hebrew blood to save his people, declaring, "Let my people go." You knew that part, right? Let my people go. You recall it wasn't easy. The Pharaoh didn't just give up his servants without a fight, but God cast over plague after plague, from locusts and frogs, flies and lice, turned water into blood, diseased livestock, hailstorm, and boils. Now, if it were me, I'd have waved the white flag when it came to the lice. That's just gross. But it took full 7 plagues. And then you remember the final escape. As the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, the waters parted and they walked across on dry land until Pharaoh's army came barreling behind and the seas crashed upon them, wiping them out as the Israelites safely arrived on the other shore. Oh, what a story, right? How elated they were to be liberated, free from slavery, free from oppression, free to worship their God and follow their hearts. Except, of course, they were stuck in the middle of nowhere. It didn't take long for them to wish they were anywhere but the wilderness. How quickly they turned on Moses, whining and complaining, wishing they could return to their servant quarters and serve the Egyptians as slaves once again. They were hungry and tired, and they second-guessed every decision. But God was faithful, and those who hungered were provided bread. Now, it didn't look like the bread they were used to, but this was the bread of heaven, manna. In the morning when they'd rise, there would be a layer of dew upon the ground, and the dew would settle, and there'd be this fine, flaky substance, bread for the hungry. So each morning they would gather and eat the bread, and the next morning a new batch would be there waiting for them. God provided. Now their inclination might have been to stock up, to store for the future, to build a big grain silo and settle in for the long haul. But if they were to continue on their journey, they couldn't just stock up and settle down. God promised to provide for their needs each day, no more, but no less. It reminds me of the prayer that we just prayed together. Jesus told us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." So we pray that we'll have enough food to eat today, this day. Jesus doesn't tell us to pray for a full silo of grain or even a refrigerator stocked with food. Give us enough to eat today. And for most of us, we get what we prayed for. Not because Jesus did it for us or God made it appear, but because we are privileged and we have enough money to buy enough bread for the day. But if we're honest, we have the silo-sized version. We have more than enough for today. I know that many of you are world travelers. I can recall many times abroad where I have experienced culture shock in the kitchen. One such time was when my family and I were in Europe. We were there twice in the winter and spring of 2017 for a total of 10 weeks in 2 different apartments. And each time we had a mini fridge. At first I thought this was because we were staying in Airbnbs, kind of like a hotel fridge. But in talking with our host, she explained, no, she'd lived in this apartment for 10 years and this is just the size of the fridge. The same size as the one I had in my college dorm room where I got 3 square meals a day in the cafeteria. For us, it was the snack and beverage fridge. But this dorm room fridge was the norm. So to be clear, I'm not talking about my time in Guatemala or other places in Central and South America where there is a real struggle for food security. I'm talking about Europe, folks. Prague. Paris. We're not talking poverty here. These are privileged people, but they don't have supersized fridges with backup fridge and a deep freezer in the garage. There was enough food for the day, and then the next morning and into the next day, but not days, and certainly not weeks and weeks on end. One of the things I loved most was going to the market daily. There were so many of these little bodega-type places where you could easily grab milk and eggs, fresh fruit, and the cheeses. I love the cheeses. I don't know why. Every time I go somewhere else, they have amazing cheeses. Come to Guatemala with me and we'll eat that too. But it was so much a part of the experience, the daily quest for food. And then I think about our fridge at home. We complain about it because it's not big enough. It can't really fit the food well. We always have to stuff it in so it doesn't tumble out. But then every time we open it and there's nothing to eat. Despite there being drawer after drawer and frozen food stacked to the brim, I'm so struck by this visual of the wandering Israelites asked to live by faith that God would keep the promise and the manna would come each day. That even though they might have been uncomfortable to not stock up, they were told, even forbidden, not to do so. Don't take more than you need. Eat your fill of the day and believe that there will be enough food for tomorrow. It's hard for me to even imagine that possible in our culture. We live in the society where more is always better. The bigger is the best. And it doesn't really bother us if we waste things because we know we can always stock up on more to fill those fridges should our fridges go bad, so should our excess go bad in the meantime. The size of your fridge is directly proportional to your wealth here. How many fridges do you have? You don't have to answer that now, but you know. So what were those first world Europeans doing with dorm room fridges? That's not the American way. Jesus says, pray for enough for today. Americans say, there's never enough. We're at odds here. But there's not enough food for everyone, so we have to stock up. The myth of scarcity. We all witnessed this when the pandemic began. I was in Florida at the time when California locked down, and the news showed the grocery stores here and the empty aisles. My Facebook feed was filled with people standing in line or triumphantly holding gigantic toilet paper bundles over their heads like they just won the championship. You remember that? Was it you? Well, we hadn't stocked up before we left town, and we were worried that when we did return, there would be no food, no supplies, no nothing. Everyone hoarded everything for fear there just wouldn't be enough. And yet, I have not met anyone who ran out of toilet paper last year. Have you? And even though we weren't around for the rush, neither did we. The myth of scarcity. We are facing a global food crisis, but it's not because there is not enough to go around. It's because there are haves and have-nots. The haves are us. We let food rot in our giant fridge because we can't possibly eat everything we have. Well, the have-nots scrape by on scraps, sometimes eating just one meal a day or less. Now, you might say the moral of the Exodus passage was that the Israelites had enough faith that God would provide. Does that mean that we don't have enough faith, and that's why we have to stock up? What kind of faith is that? We don't believe. O ye of little faith. Or maybe those who are hungry don't have enough faith, and that's why they don't have enough. That doesn't sound right. Neither of them do. I don't really think it's about faith that God will provide because God already has. God does. But it's the human beings who screw up. We're like the Israelites in that once we get what we want, we don't want it anymore. And we're really good at complaining, right? We want what we had, or we think we want what we had, or we want something else entirely, so we screw up what we do have. God created this incredible earth, this regenerating, rejuvenating, resurrecting earth that gives and gives and gives some more. And yet we deplete her. We abuse her. We take her resources and fight to keep them all our own when there was enough for all. God provides, and we take advantage. We don't just take our daily bread, we take 2/3 of everyone's daily bread, and then it goes bad a week later because we never needed that much to begin with. I think about the hungry all over the world. The hungry in our own country. I remember when I was in the Dominican Republic for a sabbatical in 2012, and a Dominican and I were talking about the experience of homelessness and those in need. He was shocked. Jaw-dropping shocked that there were unhoused and hungry people in the United States of America. He had seen so many missionaries and relief workers in La República Dominicana that he thought that we had solved all of those problems here, and now we were moving on beyond our own country. What are all these Americans doing here, he asked sincerely, if they haven't fixed the problem at home? I've thought about that question over and over again. And I think the answer has to be, of course, both and. We need to do both. There really is no excuse here in the United States. We have plenty of food, and yet we know there are hungry people. We have areas, even here in California, known as food deserts. You can get a $1.99 burger, but you can't get fruit in certain areas. There's something terribly wrong with this picture. Of course, the question asked by my Dominican friend is one we have to ask ourselves again and again. How did we let this happen? Not here, not in the US of A. But of course, we know the truth. There are hungry people here. There are hungry people all over the world for a myriad of reasons that cannot get enough food to eat. 3 full, nutritionally sound meals are often impossible. Several years ago, I came across images from a book called The Hungry Planet by photographer Peter Menzel and writer Faith D'Alucio. And they traveled the world documenting that most basic of human behaviors, what we eat. Their project depicts everything that an average family consumes in a given week and what it costs. The pair released this book in 2005, so it's almost 20 years ago. And it showcases meals in 24 countries. So here you go. This is the first one. This is the Dong family from China. And in 1 week, they spent 1,233.76 yuan, or 155.06. So take a look at what they're eating. They've got water, lots of fruits and vegetables. They've got some Coca-Cola there somewhere. A little bit of fast food from KFC, of course. McDonald's, eggs, fresh meats, lots of condiment-type stuff. And then you can contrast that with the Batsuri family, who's from Mongolia. They're not far from China. They spend 41,985.85 togrogs, or $40.02 a week. Their fridge is mid-sized. They've got a lot of eggs. They've got fresh bread. They've got meat. What else do you see there? Now let's take a look at the Polish family. This is the Subsinskis. They spend 582 zlotys, or $151.27 a week. Their favorite meal is pig knuckles, which is a little gross to me. They look very happy, though. They're in their kitchen, or maybe it's their living room. It's overflowing with food. They even have dog food for their puppy that the daughter's cuddling there. Among the fresh vegetables, I think I see some cookies and some M&Ms, some candy up there. Lots of canned goods, too. Next up, this is the Abukar family. They are of Bredjing Camp, Chad, who spend a whopping 885 Chad francs, or $1.23 a week. I'm guessing that their kitchen is outside. They don't have a whole lot of perishables. I don't see any fruit and vegetables. They have a little bit of milk there in that bottle, and a whole lot of grains in those non-commercial bags. All that is to feed the 6 of them. Let's compare that to the Revis family of 4 from North Carolina. They spend $341.98 a week. They have pizzas. Their fridge, you'll notice, is large, but it's actually not oversized. 16 years ago. They have Diet Coke. They got root beer, several juice bottles, maybe even some chocolate milk back there, potato chips, Burger King, Mickey D's, lots of packaged food, although there's some fruit in the middle there, tomatoes and grapes. Then there's the AIM family of Tingo, Ecuador, who spend $31.55 a week on nearly all fresh foods and grains. There's no packaging whatsoever. I do not see a fridge. I see some big pots in their sparing kitchen. We'll end on a pretty good note with our neighbors to the south, with La Familia Casales de Cuernavaca, Mexico. And they spend 1,862.78 pesos, or $189.09. Their favorite food is not tacos or nachos, but it's pizza, crab, pasta, and chicken. They are seriously hooked up with Coca-Cola back there. I have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. They have bread and they have cereal. You can check out the book or even look online to see some more photos that compare these families worldwide, but you get the picture. We're all sustaining on different foods for different costs. Some sustenance is a little more nutritional than others. Once you swing too far to either side of that spectrum, the nutritional value seems to drop. But I can't help thinking about that family from Chad, who exist on less than your Starbucks pumpkin spiced coffee a week to feed 6 people, which is actually at $1.23. That's even less than your 7-Eleven coffee. Starbucks will get them a whole month. I think we have to aim somewhere in the middle here. I'm not saying that we have to be Israelites in the wilderness, sustaining ourselves on manna alone, but this excess, it's really not good for us. We're not any healthier, we're not any happier just because we have these gigantic refrigerators. And the truth is, our world isn't either. God provided what the Israelites needed, bread to sustain them each day. Jesus tells us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." A simple, modest request that we might have just enough to be sustained and fulfilled. In a moment, we're going to share in Holy Communion as we do every month, recognizing our union with God and one another as we remember Jesus' final supper and the breaking of bread and the drinking from the fruit of the vine. Today, we will pause to reflect not only on our union with God and our union with one another here, but our union with the entirety of the Christian church worldwide. As we saw in those few pictures, whether the families were large or small, whether they spent hundreds of dollars or only one, they all shared together. And they ate of basic bread. For some, it's a tortilla. For others, a French roll. For some, it's hand-packed grain cooked in a pan on a fire. But in every culture's meal, we found some form of bread, the sustenance of life. It reminds us of the manna from heaven, given to sustain even those out in the wilderness, that God sustains us no matter what we have, the littlest bread, a gift from God. Despite our differences, we are connected. And if we share, taking only what we need, there can be enough. There is enough for all of God's children around the globe. Amen.